Good evening. Thank you very much for joining the To Hull and Back podcast, proudly sponsored by Pearson's Bar and 6 Yards Out. And today we've got another opposition preview with Clive from Loft for Words. How are you doing, Clive?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm much better after yesterday's win.
Well, yeah, same because City had a very poor result against West Brom last weekend. So 3-2 wins for our clubs.
It was much needed. It was much needed just for all the. I mean, QPR have been in such poor form for the last sort of 8 or 9 months. It's been getting a lot of us down in various ways. There's a lot wrong at the club, as we'll probably go into. But just to play like that and see, I think for the first time, what Mick Beale's trying to do here, and obviously go into just a relegated club with the parachute payments and all the advantages they've got, Sarr and Pedro playing up front, and to outplay them and get that win it lifted a lot of our shoulders, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so probably skipping ahead a bit, talking about the result just gone. But I'll ask you a little bit about last season, because I remember QPR were sort of dark horses, but then they weren't dark horses because everyone thought they were going to be dark horses.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to get into the top 6 after a very good summer of recruitment, especially the back end of 2 seasons ago was very strong. And then so a lot of people backed you to finish in the top 6, and then started well, but then drifted off a bit later on, like Commentary, who I've just done a preview with. So 11th last season. Was that a good or a bad season for Queen's Park Rangers?
It was, in the end, pretty disastrous, really. QPR are constant. Since we were in the Premier League, we massively overspent when we were there. We spent all of the money that we were given just on poor footballers and their agents and their wages. You know, we breached FFP. We got the biggest fine ever meted out in global sport for our FFP breach in the year that Bobby Zamora scored the winning goal in the playoff final. So we had that opportunity to go to the Premier League and build the club and set the club up for the next 10, 20 years, and blew it, really. All the money went on people like Joey Barton, Jose Bosingwa, Sean Wright-Phillips, people like that. Since we've come back down, there's been a sort of period of house cleaning and trying to comply with the FFP rules, getting rid of all the crusty old players that were earning £60,000 a week. You know, when we came back into the Championship, we had people like Luke Young, Sean Wright-Phillips, Julio Cesar, like the Brazilian World Cup goalkeeper, on £100,000 a week, not even making our bench. So there's been a period of medicine taking and bloodlet for that excess under Hughes and Redknapp and the early days of the Tony Fernandez ownership. Last season was the first time, really, we'd actually developed a player properly and sold him for good money, Abire Eze. And that gave us the FFP headroom and the chance to spend a little bit of money last summer, do some decent recruitment. We'd finished the previous season really strongly with 4 loan signings in January: Charlie Austin, Steph Johansson, Sam Field, and Jordi Device from Hull. We made all of those permanent, and we added Dazelle, Jimmy Dunn, Andre Gray, Sam McCallum, Moses Odubajo, another ex-Hull, on top of all of that, and didn't let anybody go. That's a significant, I mean, not, you know, other Championship teams go out and spend £8 million on players and things like that. For us, that was a significant outlay, and the wages that we took on there were significant. And it was clear that we were going to go for it, top 6. I thought we'd make the top 6. For the whole sort of first 2/3 of the season, we were just trucking along fine, not playing as well as we had the previous season, but okay. And in the top 6, we had an unbeaten January when we thought we might struggle because Chair and Dieng were at the AFCON. We came out the end of January beating Reading 4-0. At that point, we needed 6-7 wins from the last 18 games to make the 6. And the debate at QPR was really, can we push Bournemouth for second? And it just went off a cliff. We've won 5 of 25 games since then, one of them yesterday. I think we won 3-4 games in the end of last season. One of those was a dead rubber last day of the season at Swansea. It just went off a cliff, like nothing I've ever seen before. And at the time, it's inexplicable. But as time ticks on and more things leak out of the club, you realise that basically there was so much going on behind the scenes that it was kind of a castle built on sand, and it fell apart so dramatically. And it's taken a lot out of a lot of us, because there's not a lot of optimism in following QPR. You don't follow QPR for the winning. So to actually build ourselves up thinking we were going to make the six, to be in the six for so long, and for it to collapse the way it did, and to start finding out some of the reasons that went on has been really, really difficult to take and sort of get myself and a few of us feel the same sort of back up for the new season.
So would you say it's more off the pitch issues that caused that downturn in form? Because I wasn't aware of these when I was looking at that, and I just thought QPR just lost a bit of momentum, perhaps.
I mean, we're competing in a division of parachute payment teams, and I was thinking watching Watford yesterday. The last time Watford got promoted second, I don't even think they played that well. I don't ever remember being that impressed by Watford, and yet they finished second. Bournemouth last year, I can't ever remember thinking that Bournemouth played well. They beat us twice. I didn't think they played well in either game. And they've gone up and got beat 9-0 yesterday. The advantages of that parachute payment teams have in this division mean that teams like us without them have got to try so hard and work so hard and be so clever and box so clever just to compete and make the six. So
and then they don't seem to do very well when they get back up as well. I think the parachute payments are too big at the moment.
Yeah, so we were there for so long, and they probably just weren't good enough in the end. You were relying on people like Steph Johansson, who's coming to the end of his career, done well on loan, and he wasn't able to reproduce it. You're relying on Charlie Austin, coming to the end of his career, wasn't able to reproduce it, and we got a lot of results through October, November, December, January last year that we didn't deserve. Like you 1-2-1 at Bristol City in the last minute, we were terrible. 1-2-1 at Birmingham, we were terrible. And they just couldn't keep that going with all the disadvantages we've got. But like I say, as it turns out, there was also a lot going on behind the scenes, which then result in Mark Warburton was basically leaving long before the end of the season. It was basically obvious that he was not going to keep his job. So you could just see then that there was actually so much that we didn't realize that was going on. So many people had fallen out with each other behind the scenes that it went on a slide like I've rarely seen, really.
Yeah, well, that was my next question, because I was quite surprised. Even though QPR had that poor form, I thought Mark Warburton had done a fairly decent job. Were you surprised when he was sacked last season?
Yes, I was at the time. As time's gone on and the more and more you hear, no. Like I say, that was a significant backing for QPR in the transfer market last summer, and a lot of the problems we're having this season are because we pushed right up to our FFP limit to do that last summer. So it was a significant backing for him. And once relationships have deteriorated behind the scenes, not talking and no relationship at all with the under-23s and the academy side that the club are keen to push, people falling out with each other, you've spent money on players, you haven't sold anybody. Once relationships have deteriorated like that, you basically have to make the playoffs. Otherwise, you're obviously going to lose your job because, the relationships have got to that stage that we had to make the six and we didn't. He lost, what did we lose? 12, 13 of our last 17, 18 games last year. Like, if you're not getting on with the people behind the scenes and you're not doing what they want with developing players and bringing youth through, not even talking to the youth coaches, then obviously you're going to get the sack. I think it's a shame because I think he's a good manager and I think he did a really good job over 3 years. He left the team in a better place than the one he inherited from Steve McLaren, which was a shambles.
Many managers, especially in the Championship, can really say that.
No. And it's very un-QPR-like to do 3 years here. I mean, we work through managers really quickly here. So to do 3 years, he did a good job overall. The team's better than the shambles he inherited from McLaren. So it was a shame. It was a shame. There was so much optimism last season. And the way it went, Yeah, you can tell I'm not over it. It was not the summer. It was not the summer to have a really short preseason. I never wanted to see QPR again. Like,
yeah. Well, however, you've got a new manager, Michael Beale. You'll have to remind me where he was before QPR.
It's in theory, it's the brains behind Steven Gerrard. He was Gerrard's assistant at Rangers and Villa. Looking at Villa now, maybe there's some truth in that. Maybe he wasn't.
I'm always curious about like assistant managers becoming managers because you're never quite sure whether, like Arteta, for example, I think he's turned out to be fairly decent at Arsenal, but there was that debate, well, was he good just because he was at Man City with Guardiola, or has he actually learned some stuff? So, so far, it's only been 6 games, but what are your thoughts on the new manager?
I mean, who can tell? We've played 6 games. We've played 6 games, 3 at home, 3 away. We've won 1, drawn 1, and lost 1 at home. Won 1, drawn 1, lost 1 away. Scored 9 and conceded 9.
That's average, isn't
it? We've won the 2 games that looked the hardest. Middlesbrough at home and Watford away. We've ballsed up the 2 home games you thought were bankers, Blackpool and Rotherham at home. We've played brilliantly in parts of games. Yesterday was the first time really we've played for 90 minutes, I think. Amazing first half an hour against Middlesbrough. We've looked appalling in some other games, like the second half against Blackpool, second half at Blackburn on the opening day, just staggeringly bad. So who knows? He's up against it FFP wise. I think he's been a little bit surprised quite how tight that situation is. I'm not sure that was in the brochure when he took the job. Because at the start, like literally a month ago, he was saying we won't be doing loans. You know, we only want players that are coming here permanently. And now, lo and behold, we're doing loans. He said at the start that he won't. That, you know, we can't be having people like Andre Gray and Charlie Austin here obstructing pathways for young players. Now we're signing Leon Balogun, who's 34 years old and just been released by Rangers. So I think the situation is different to what he thought he was coming in for. It's a very, very tough job, QPR, for all of the reasons, some of them we've gone into already, around finances and FFP, the ground being a bit of a millstone around us. You know, the club loses £1.8 million a month, even in its current state. So, you know, you're up against it at QPR. It's a really tough job. Yesterday was the first time at Watford I think we've seen what Mick Beale thinks QPR should look like. His system, fullbacks going forward, played really, really well yesterday. This first time we put 90 minutes together. I hope that's where he sees us going. That's what a Mick Beale team might look like. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
So, what were your expectations for QPR before the season started, and has that changed after, you know, those poor results against Rotherham and was it Blackpool? Did you say? And then
we did.
But then 2 very impressive results against Borough and Watford.
Yeah. So I mean, who knows? My expectations at the start of the season were somewhere around 14th to 16th,
So
based on the outlay last season and the effect that's going to have on who we can recruit this season. We basically need to sell a player for Eze-style money every 18 months-ish, so that we can then spend money and recruit and build through that. And you've seen, sadly, for us, Brentford, our near neighbours, have done that really well. And even Nottingham Forest, you know, people talking about Nottingham Forest, all their mentalness and all the players they sign. If you go back and look, Nottingham Forest sold a player for £8 million plus basically every season for the last 9 seasons. It just creates so much FFP headroom if you can do that. Yeah. And we saw we were able to go and have a go last year and sign 9 or 10 players and have a tilt at the playoffs last year because we sold Eze. So without another Eze sale, it's difficult to see really where our wiggle room comes from. So you're looking at people like Chris Willock or Ilias Chair, maybe, to be that next big money sale. And I know it sounds counterintuitive to want your best player to go, but if you could get another Eze 20 million for another player, then you can build and have another go, because you can go out and sign, you know, Chris Willock was bought with the Eze money, and you can recruit and build like that. I think it's the only way you can do it at this level if you don't have parachute payments. So we need another sale. As sad as that is, that's where I think we are personally.
Well, yeah, I mean, City have been able to do that this season because of Lewis Potter leaving for about 20 million, and we already had, because we hadn't spent any money, any of the Bowen money, so we'd already had like that big what did you call it, headroom.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad seeing those players leave, right? Jared Bowen was the best player in the Championship with Eze. I remember we won at Hull when Eze and Bowen basically put on an absolute show. They were both incredible. And Lewis Potter. So it's sad seeing them leave, right? But the rules of the league just make
have to do it.
The only way you can. It's the only way you can do it. Hull couldn't have gone out and done the business they've done this summer, right? Without Keane Lewis Potter leaving.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've spent almost half or more than half the transfer fee we got for Lewis Potter anyway. Might have had 50 million up front. We've spent between 10 and 12 million ish on 3 players, but those 3 players are probably going to be more important to our team than just Lewis Potter, perhaps.
Exactly.
Although,
so that's what we're trying to do. And if you don't do that, you end up being Derby Chef Wednesday. If you just go out and spend and spend and spend without building sellable assets and selling them, then that's how you end up being Derby and Chef Wednesday.
I mean, I say that they're going to be important players to us. All 3 of those players are injured at the moment, unfortunately. So, we're having a huge injury crisis at the moment. So, I mean, later I'm going to ask you for your predicted lineup. I don't know how difficult that's going to be for you, but it'll be quite simple for us because we've only got about 11 players. Yeah. So, we've been touching on it. Shall we talk about the new transfers? You've already mentioned Liam Balogun, and he's a centre-back at Rangers, but you don't think, from what you've said, are you very impressed with that?
I'm just going to bite my tongue because I put on Twitter on Friday what I thought and got absolutely annihilated for it. And
this is a safe space.
Everything that they've said over the summer and all of the reasons that Warburton was removed and, all the noises they've made to then sign a 34-year-old centre-back from Glasgow Rangers, however much of a good fella he is in leadership and, you lack experience and whatever, just blew my mind, to be perfectly honest. But I said enough about that on Friday. What else have we done? Jake Clark-Salter looks a really good signing from Chelsea on a free transfer. Best years ahead of him, as Michael Beale likes to say. We've played a back 3 last year with a left-sided centre-back, Yohan Barbe, who they let go. We've gone to a back 4 this year. He's brought Clark-Salter in. I don't think he likes Jimmy Dunn as much as quite a few people do. So I think his first choice is Clark-Salter and Dickey, although whether that's changed now with Balogun coming in, we'll find out. Clark-Salter immediately got injured on the first day at Blackburn. We haven't seen him since. Similarly, we brought Taylor Richards in from Brighton, who we have an obligation to buy next summer as long as we don't get relegated, which is a clause that I've never heard before.
That's a very odd one. I mean, I've understood obligation to buy when, we've done it a few times in the Premier League, and that's like a deadline day thing.
Yeah.
That just means the loan is not actually a loan. You've just bought them and you'll pay them later. Whereas I'm surprised about that because, honestly, I expected big things from him. He'd had a very good season at Doncaster, and then at Birmingham he played 6 times or something. So I'm surprised QPR would be willing to do that because he might have another poor year.
Well, he got injured. I mean, again, he got injured at Blackburn on the first day, and we haven't seen him since. I mean, this shows you how tight our FFP situation is, that we're having to do creative deals like this. We got Tyler Roberts from Leeds on a similar deal. He's basically been injured since he got here.
Oh dear.
We got Kenneth Parle at left back from the Dutch league. The analytics types really like him. He's been a bit ropey to this point, but was really good yesterday. We got Ethan Laird on loan from Man United. A lot of clubs are after him. He looked really good at Swansea last year, and he's been terrific so far. Absolutely brilliant. He's only on loan, so presumably, he's just going to stay for a year, and then next summer we'll need a right back again. They're talking about doing as many as 5 transfers next week, and I don't know whether that was just to kick the players that are currently underperforming up the arse or what, but I don't see how we do 5 without significant outgoings.
But who would be those outgoings?
It's just, it's what we do.
Are there any players you think might leave?
So the best players in the team are Chair and Willock. I cannot believe like if teams aren't seriously looking at Chris Willock and thinking Abiri Eze, then they're looking in the wrong place for the wrong thing. I think he's easily one of the best players in this league. He's scored in all 3 games so far. If I was any team at the top of this division or the bottom of the one above with any money to spend, he would be absolutely top of my shopping list, because I think you would get him from us for 11 or 12 million pound now, and he'll be worth 3 or 4 times that. We said this with Eze a few years ago.
The English tax as well. Yeah.
Everybody ignored us. We said this with Eze a few years ago. Everybody ignored us. Palace took the plunge, and look at Eze now. I mean, that's a 60, 65 million. Well, if Anthony Gordon's 60 million, then God knows what Eze's worth.
I think they're valuing him at 80 million now with the added on players. It's ridiculous.
Insane. So I can't believe that teams aren't looking at Willock. But what we need to do really, ideally, is shift some of the sort of mid-range dead weight players that have been around here for a long time and just aren't going to cut it. Macaulay Bonne, George Thomas, Nico Hammerline, people like that. But you've got to find someone to take them. So and if I was watching those players, I wouldn't be in a rush to take them. So
and like lower league teams might not be able to afford them as well.
Exactly, we're at that.
We've had that same problem. So are you quite confident that Cher and Willock will stay after Thursday?
I think Cher will. Cher's on a long contract, and sort of the jury's out about whether he could go on and be better still. I think he maybe could. I think he's sort of top end of this division rather than the one above. Willock, I just think, is insane. He's going to be brilliant. Anybody should be looking at him. He's only got 2 years left on his deal this season and next. I'd be amazed if he signed a new one here, because I suspect him and his dad and his agent know what he'd be worth as a free transfer. So sad as it is, we have got to look to get some serious money for him, if not this week. I think this week might be a bit soon. He's just come back off a bad injury, then certainly in January.
His brother is the Willock at Newcastle, right?
And there's another Willock, I think, at Salford.
Right. So not as impressive.
We joke that Newcastle bought the wrong Willock. There is an argument to say that Chris is better than Joe.
Will you get the one from Salford when Chris Willock goes, potentially?
That sounds a very QPR thing to do, to be fair.
So, I mean, you mentioned maybe another 5 signings coming in. What positions would you, if you could only have one more player, what position do you think QPR need the most?
I mean, just stock Championship answer. I bet every Championship fan.
Is it a striker?
It's a striker. Yeah.
Surely not.
I mean, but what can you do? Like when you're trying to compete on a budget, we've really struggled to own our own strikers. We've taken a chance on Lyndon Dykes, and we're really trying to make a go of it with Lyndon Dykes. We'd like to see a little bit more Scotland Lyndon Dykes than the QPR Lyndon Dykes we've got. To be fair, he was good yesterday, so I'm hoping that this might be the start of a little run of form, but his confidence is just shot to shit rags, and he's a pretty basic player anyway, so that's been hard work. We bought Macaulay Bonne. That hasn't really worked.
Yeah.
We've relied on loans a lot. Hemed, Hugill, Naki Wells, people like that. So yeah, owning our own strikers and making a go of it with a striker has been a real problem for us. Would have been nice if we'd got your lad out the Portuguese league. I mean, when you can tell it's a good signing when, if you see the rumour, like even though we've been aiming a bit higher than usual, we've signed players like Seri, which we would never have done, ever last year under the Alan era, ownership. I saw him. I thought, well, he's his team in Portugal got into Europe. He scored 15 goals. Nunes is worth 60 million, and he's a striker in Portugal. We're never going to get him, and so far he's turned out to be exactly as good as I thought he could be. He's way ahead. So he's definitely our danger man. The danger men for you are obviously Cher and Willock. Is there anyone else City fans should be looking out for on Tuesday night? God, it's so tempting to just go, not really, no.
Well, that's also an answer.
To be fair, when Tyler Roberts has been fit and played, he's looked very good. The Leeds fans say that he makes poor decisions in the final third, and we have seen a little bit of that. But he to be judge people as you find them. He's been really good when he's played so far. He's obviously struggling for fitness. Cher and Willock are the best players we've got. Big Lyndon, we're trying our best with. And like I say, Laird going up and down the right side, Pal going up and down the left side for the first time yesterday looked really, really good. So that's where the threat comes from.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to give listeners your lineup prediction for QPR?
I'd be surprised, given the injuries we've got, I'd
Mm-hmm.
be surprised if it's a lot different from what started yesterday. So it's basically a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, depending on how sort of trendy you want to be about it. With Dieng in goal, who's already scored this season.
Yeah, that was a great goal as well. That was really good to see. And see, I think
if Linden could head a ball like that, we wouldn't have a problem.
I think that goal put us top of the league. Was it in the third round, top of the league, or second or something? So we appreciated that.
Yeah, very glad that I stuck it out to the end of that game. So then Laird, Dickey, Dunn, and Parle as the back four because Clark Salt is injured, and I presume Balogun, having not done a pre-season with anybody, is not available. Johansson, Dazelle, and Field as a midfield three. Field's really good. I like Field. Gets booked all the time, but he's a good footballer. Basically because everyone else is injured. Riches is injured. Roberts is injured, so it's probably going to have to be those three midfielders again, and then Chair and Willock playing off and behind Dykes. When we went for it at home to Rotherham, they took one of the midfield three out, Dazelle, and added Roberts to Chair and Willock with Dykes. It didn't work because we didn't beat Rotherham, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they won't try again.
So, are you fairly happy with that lineup? If that was the lineup on Tuesday,
it's what we've got. There's zero. Once you scratch, I mean, you saw in the League Cup at Charlton, once you scratch beneath the surface at QPR, there's nothing there. There's zero strength in depth. One of the bones of contention at the moment, and the criticisms that's going the way of the director of football and things, is that one of the reasons that Mark Warburton fell out with people at QPR, or they fell out with him, is that the pathways between the under-23s and the academy and the first team were perceived to be closed. He wouldn't even talk to the academy coaches. That's one of the reasons he was sacked. New managers come in, made very positive noises about opening those pathways and giving those players a chance. We've seen one or two of them start up to this point. None of them are good enough. And there's players kicking around this club into their mid-20s now who've never really played for the first team. And when they do get their chance now, they're just not good enough. The one shining light in all of that is a kid called Sinclair Armstrong, an Irish youth international. We've been bringing him off the bench. He looks like he's got amazing potential to go on and be something really, really good. Very raw and very young and naive. Snatches at chances when they come along. He's obviously keen to get his first goal, but he's a handful coming off the bench. So he's a sort of shining light in that blue.
Okay, well, it's good to have a bit more information about him. So, last thing to do. Well, I don't usually do this, but what are your opinions on Hull City so far this season? Are you quite surprised, or did you think that?
Not at all. I think there were a lot of lazy predictions in the summer about Hull, basically because people hadn't heard of a lot of the players you were buying. I think Hull have underperformed for a considerable amount of time, basically because of who the owners were. I think the ownership were a malignant cancer, dragging a club that should be somewhere up here, just way below its level.
Yeah, that's very well put.
Out of spite, really, because they wanted the council to give them the ground for £1 or whatever it was years ago. It got turned down. The national press think it's because they wanted to call them Hull Tigers and they threw their toys out of the pram about that.
Well, it's more that they wanted to change the name because they couldn't own the stadium, I guess.
Yeah, it's always all been about the ownership of the stadium. And I think basically like the Oystons at Blackpool, when you've got your owner deliberately dragging you down like a lead weight, you're always going to underperform. So I think it was pretty obvious that Hull would perform better without that ownership. And if there is one number that you can draw a line on a graph and try and gauge where clubs are going, it's wages. It's not transfer fees, it's wages. And Hull have obviously taken on some serious salary this year. They're paying players way more. They're attracting players that they never would have attracted. And inevitably going to lead to an uptick in performance. So I think a lot of people that thought this would be a catastrophe, and I've never heard of this guy and Hull are relegation candidates, I think it was lazy. I mean, I think I put Hull bang in the middle of my championship table at the start of the year, just because how could you tell there's so many players coming in? But the idea they would get relegated was insane to me. So it doesn't surprise me that they're doing well.
Yeah, I mean, even if we had the same squad as last year without Lewis Potter, but if we had an actual striker, then we would have finished last season. We would have finished like 15th or something very comfortable.
I mean, let's be fair, mate. You stayed up last season with Tom Eaves playing up front, and I got furniture in this house better than that guy. So
you probably alienated a few fans there. I mean,
okay, well,
I liked Tom Eaves, but I didn't think he was very good. Like he did a job, but and I liked him. But you're not really allowed to say that.
Okay, well, I'm not personally attached to him in that way, and I thought he was crap. So there we go. There you go.
Well, fair enough.
All of your listeners, and also condemned us to conceding to Tom Eaves when we play Rotherham later this season.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I don't think he's played for them yet, but I mean, it's amazing how we've gone from players like Eaves and Smallwood and that sort of thing, who very good, important players for us who put a lot of effort in, but they didn't necessarily have the quality our new players have, and. So like Ozan Tufan, for example, even like we liked Honeyman, we thought he was actually quite good, but Tufan's a massive upgrade on Honeyman. So I think I had us at 11th. I think we should be aiming just a little higher, because we're even picking up results without our best players who are injured. Although then again, you could say because they're injured, they might come back, and we're hoping they're going to improve the team. Maybe none of them are any good, but should be a few more before the deadline on Thursday. So the last thing to do, what's your score prediction for Tuesday night?
I never usually give these because, my predictions are awful. I mean, like
it's the structure of the show, so like you have to do it.
I don't know. What do you want to say? 2-2? I don't know. Let's go with
That's fine.
Let's go with the draw.
Yeah. I don't know what to do, because I would normally say it's going to be a draw, but the previous 6 games I've said are going to finish in a draw, and I think I can't really keep doing that. So I think we did poorly away from home last week, and I think we do have a sort of home away, like they're very different teams at the moment. So I think QPR will have a lot of the ball again. Like we've not had much of the ball away from home. So I'm not 100%.
Didn't your manager take all your strikers off and hold on to a 0-0 at Preston? I know everybody draws 0-0 at Preston.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll downgrade it from 2-2 to 1-1 then.
Yeah, I think that's probably reasonable. I mean, if Estepinian gets on the end of something, then we could do well, but I think we'll be under the cosh again. So I might be negative, even though I shouldn't be, and say we're going to lose 2-1, maybe.
I'd be surprised if you did.
I mean, I might be the first person, to predict my own team is going to lose on our own show, but there we go.
I do that every week. Don't worry about
it. I can't say it's a draw. I think my actual answer is 1-1, but I can't say it 7 times in a row. So 2-1 to QPR, perhaps.
Oh, wow. Bloody hell. I'd be surprised, but we'll see.
Maybe. I mean, I'd love to be. Oh, no, maybe I should. That's ridiculous. 2-1 win. There. That would be better. So we've got a few more. Elliot Hook says 2-2. It could be another goal-filled game, because we're terrible at set pieces, so defending set pieces. Boss. Oh, yeah, then maybe it'll be 4 goals from set pieces. My boss says 2-1 to City. Need to win. Do we need to win, Ant? I think a draw is okay. That's a bit interesting. I'll ask him about that soon. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Clive. I hope you've had a lovely time.
No problem, mate. Nice to meet you in this online form.
Yes, and Hull and Back will be back again this week, maybe twice for a Sheffield United preview, and also the main review/preview podcast with all of our lovely faces on Thursday. And saying need to win because he's going. Yes, I'd forgotten about that. I suppose so.
Fair play at
says,
36
yeah.
quid, mate. Fair play.
Oh yeah, that Twitter was not happy at all with that, and why should they be? It's a lot.
It's disgusting. And I know I've seen a lot of Hull fans saying charge them the same when we come to yours, and I get that sentiment, but it's not our fault. Like we don't decide.
Why punish the fans for something the fans aren't happy with anyway?
I get that it's horrible. Anybody coming down on Tuesday, like, safe journey, good luck to you guys. And if you're paying 36 quid to follow your team to London on a Tuesday night in this climate, in this country at the moment, then absolutely fair play to you and good luck.
Yeah, well, that's very well said. So yeah, thank you, Clive. And last thing, where can QPR and Hull City fans find Love for Words stuff?
We're on Twitter at Love for Words. We're on a sort of a website festooned with adverts, but it's worth wading through, I hope. loveforwords.co.uk. Okay, thank you very much. And To Hull and Back will be on the airwaves again very soon.